Okay. Welcome, everybody. I hope you all can hear me. Thank you for coming tonight. As Bill mentioned, we are going to talk about, we're going to kick off a feasibility study for a shared use path through Mariemont. So we have a team that's been put together. Village of Mariemont is going to be represented by Chris Ertl, the village engineer. He's basically the go-to person on the village side if you have questions, comments, stuff like that. The village has also hired us, the Kleinger's group, as a consultant to lead the study. So we're going to go through the process, provide engineering, and among other things. And I am the primary contact for that. My name's Dave Myers, as viewed up on the screen. And we also have on our team the UC Economics Center. So they're going to help us out with quality of life analysis, stuff like that, to see what benefits could become of a path through the village. So why are we here? Well, as many of you are probably familiar, the Little Miami Scenic Trail travels very near your village and has for decades. It's been a great facility used by many people over the years, all different types of users. And as many of you also probably know, there's other pathways that are being constructed and completed nearby, more specifically the Wasson Way Trail and the Murray Path, which are nearby and are now adjacent to the village. The Columbia Connector is planned to be extended from 50 West to about the location of the Mariemont Library. I don't know that we have the exact timetable on that, but somewhere around 2025, 2026 or something like that is the target date for that. So when that's complete, many of you can connect the dots. Village of Mariemont sits in the middle. And so we're here tonight to kind of open up a discussion of how might we connect the dots. It is your village, through your village that the path would connect. So that's why we want your input. We want to know what you want from this. So what are we going to do? What's our plan? We are going to have some public meetings. This is the first one where we're going to talk about this first one, especially we're going to talk kind of at a high level, what kind of things might you want to get out of a pathway? Where could it possibly go? This is a bit of a brainstorming session where everything's on the table, there's open ideas. And eventually what we want to get out of this meeting, amongst other things, is to kind of decide 2 or 3 options that we could take a look at and kind of dive into a little more details and see if they might be worthwhile. We're also going to have it's an ongoing process. So we will host a website where people who couldn't make it to this meeting can go and see this presentation. We're videoing it, so it's going to be posted. And they can also provide their feedback similar to what you're going to be doing here tonight. We'll also post results of that feedback so you can kind of get an idea, some visualization of what people are saying about certain topics. And there'll be other ongoing information throughout the process. We're also going to reach out to certain target groups to get their feedback in a more technical standpoint. Police, fire department, stuff like that, of certain options that we're going to take a look at. What issues might they have? What benefits can come out from pathways for that? So we'll hit up primary stakeholders for that. We'll take an engineering evaluation, so we'll dive into some of the details. This isn't going to be design level plans where we're going to be ready for construction, but there'll be kind of feasibility plans. If we send a pathway through this particular location, what could that look like? What issues might we have with it? That sort of stuff. We're also going, as I mentioned, to involve the UC Economics to get some idea of what benefits might be in store for the village of Mariemont if we were to do a pathway through the village. So some of the things that we'll be looking at tonight are types of users who might use a pathway through the village. And I've got an example graphic up here of different types of bicycle users, but this can apply to other users, pedestrians, rollerbladers, stuff like that as well. You've got your confident and aggressive type rider, and then you've got your more casual or interested but cautious type rider, and then you've got riders that have a little bit of special needs. Such as children or people who are disabled. And so are we going to design for all different types of users, or are we going to target certain types of users as our primary focus? And as I mentioned, that can be other different, that can apply to pedestrians as well. You've got your confident joggers who have no problem jogging on the side of a road versus school children trying to walk to school. It's a different type of user, and it would have different types of design criteria. So what are we studying tonight? So we're going to be looking at possible routes. At some point in time, or after this presentation, we are going to break out. There'll be a number of maps out on tables, and you can go to those and kind of brainstorm or think about or add any input of any kind of possible routes that we might, go through our village. What are the opportunities? What could we connect to? What things within our village, your village, could you connect to? What things outside the village can we connect to by doing this? What challenges are we going to come about? And we're talking high-level challenges, like if we want to go through the village center, that's going to have challenges with interacting with, on-street parking and pedestrians and all kinds of stuff that's already using the village center. So, just as examples. And then we're also going to take a look at, how could it be funded and what that looks like. Because there's various options depending on what we do, and there's various upsides and downsides to different types of funding. So, as far as locations through the village, I just noticed that this aerial is a little off, so pay no attention to these lines on the paper. It gets better on the next slide. So, but yes, we're going to look at various options of where this could go through the village. There's no predetermined route, so we need to know what are our options and what are we going to look at. And as I mentioned before, ultimately we want to narrow it down to 2 or 3 options after this meeting to really dive in and get into some details on it. So, but right now, we're trying to find all the options. So, one option is, and this is typical of any feasibility study, is the do nothing option. We can do nothing. And certainly we have the Columbia Connector and we have the Murray Path, and they exist, and they're going to be there, so people are going to try to connect the dots. And how they're going to do that, if we do nothing, whether it be using existing sidewalks, using existing roadways, they'll find their way through. Do we want to provide some minimal level of wayfinding signage, maybe take a look at a couple crossings here or there? That's kind of the do nothing, bare minimum type option. Another possible option is to go right through the village center. As many of you are aware, the Little Miami Trail goes right through the heart of Loveland. And that certainly has some impacts on activity and quality of life and many other things in downtown Loveland. So if that's something that could be desired here, we would take a look at a option right through the heart of the village center. Another option could be a a kind of pathway through green space through the village. There are a number of different green space areas through the village, and this would be a separated path off the roadway. Certainly lends itself to encouraging users that might not otherwise use if they were adjacent to or near kind of busy traffic. A fourth option could be using neighborhood streets to kind of wind your way through in a shared fashion, where bicycles and pedestrians and rollerbladers and all different users share the neighborhood streets that are already there along with vehicular traffic. This is showing a southern option of that nature. What else could we do? So that's what we want to hear from you tonight. That's what the maps are all about. So you tell us, and it doesn't have to be a complete path. It can be, oh, I like this little part of this path, or this little part of this area, and this is a neat opportunity, or this is a rough challenge that I think we really need to avoid this. That's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of feedback we're looking for tonight. So, how can you provide feedback? Tonight, we have a questionnaire. I know some of you have already grabbed those questionnaires. If you haven't, they're going to be on tables and available with pens. Fill out a questionnaire and provide the feedback through that. Again, there's also going to be maps. We're going to have little post-it notes where you can write little notes, pop them on the maps. You can have highlight things on the maps. We'll end up taking pictures of those maps at the end of the night for documentation. The other thing you can do is go to the village website. So either if you're not ready to provide feedback now, or if you didn't make it to this meeting, go to the website. Tomorrow we'll go live with a feedback form, which will have the same questions that the questionnaire has now here. And you can fill that out anytime over the next couple weeks, and we'll get that feedback as well. Also, we are hosting a website, or not a website, we are hosting a website. We are hosting a email address, mariemont.connector@klingers.com. That'll be available on the website to link to as well. You can send an email, so if there is feedback outside of the feedback form that you want to provide, if there's a graphic that you want to provide, something like that, you can send an email to the email address and we'll get it. Starting in a week or two, we will start providing updates on the website based on the feedback we're receiving. It'll look a little bit like bar charts and pie charts because we're engineers and that's what we like best. So you'll get an idea of what kind of feedback is coming in as a collective whole, and then can also kind of, I guess, react or discuss that. So what's next? Complete feedback, that's the first step. Then we will decide on 2 or 3 options to kind of dive in and study in more detail. That's when we'll reach out and meet with primary stakeholders and kind of get their kind of detailed input. And we'll also do our engineering and economic study through with UC Economics. Once we have all of that kind of compiled and put together, we'll have our second public meeting where we will present all of the findings from all of this. And so there we'll have findings for each of the 3 primary options, 2 or 3 primary options, and we'll solicit your feedback a second time. You'll be able to give more detailed input on, certain issues, certain routes, certain challenges or opportunities throughout the way with those primary options. Finally, we'll have a presentation to Village Council and Planning Commission, and ultimately it will be their decision on the preferred alternative. And that's the end of the presentation.